In your employee training binder, you will find scripts for all of our live animal shows. These scripts are also accessible on Blackboard. We offer 7 different shows, and each show covers a different Utah State core curriculum objective. These shows have been reviewed for accuracy by experts. Therefore, it is important that you stick to the script and avoid adding extra information. You do not necessarily need to memorize the shows, but you do want to cover the information in the order designated in the script. Live animal shows are usually scheduled at 15 minutes after the hour. This should give you enough time to get everything ready for the show. The live animal room has a keypad with a code that is changed every semester. You are not to share this code with anyone other than current educators. There is also a cart, which is kept in the education office, that can be used to transport the live animals and show bins to either the center atrium or auditorium. Each show has a bin associated with it. In each bin, you will find small mounted animals and other props for that particular show. In addition, each bin has a USB drive with a PowerPoint presentation that complements the show. These PowerPoint presentations can only be used in the auditorium. If you are giving a show in the auditorium, you will want to use the wireless microphone. It is kept in the education office and is easily controlled with the knobs found on the front wall in the auditorium. There are many things to remember when giving a live animal show. The following tips and suggestions fall into 2 categories: how to engage your audience and how to keep control of your audience. First, let's talk about ways to engage your audience.
Involve your audience members as best you can. If you feel like your group is losing interest, you can ask questions to get them thinking. You can also request help from audience members to help demonstrate certain concepts.
Know the material for your show. All the information for each show can be found in your employee binder. You may want to do some additional research, as this will help you to answer more questions. If you don't know the answer to a question, do not fabricate an answer. You might say something like, "That's such a good question, I don't even know the answer, but I will look it up for the next presentation."
Adapt the show to your audience. Speak at their level and focus on what they seem interested in.
Use humor where appropriate, but always stick to the facts written in the scripts. Remember, these scripts were reviewed and approved by experts.
Relax, be at ease, and have fun. Smile and keep your energy up. If you enjoy it, your audience will enjoy it too.
Often, children get excited about the live animals. They can also have unending stories and questions to share. The following tips may help you to manage these things so that your show will run smoothly.
Before your show starts, you're going to want to fill out the top portion of a feedback form and hand it to an adult supervisor of the show. Ask them to hand it back to you once the show is finished and before they leave the museum.
Be on time and be ready to go. You can organize the props in the show bin in the order you will use them to help you stay on track.
Tell everyone that they have to be quiet before you can bring the animals out to touch.
Be sure to instruct your audience on how to touch the animal correctly. No one is allowed to touch the animal's head, and they must pet the animal gently when it is their turn. You can also tell the audience that if anyone touches the animal incorrectly, you will put the animal away and no one will get to pet it.
With large shows, typically in the auditorium, you will need to make sure the kids move quickly through the line to touch the animals. Otherwise, not everybody will get a turn.
Make sure you're still talking as you bring the live animals around, as this will keep the group focused.
If there are a lot of questions, you can say, "I'll only take 1 or 2 more questions, and then we have to move on." At the end of every section, you can ask if there are any questions on a particular topic. For example, you can say, "Are there any questions about the forest ecosystem before we move on?"
It may be helpful if you explain the difference between a question and a story. You can tell the children that you would love to hear their stories, however, it works better if they wait until after the show is over. This doesn't always stop the kids from trying to tell their stories, but the adults in the group can help you remind them to not tell stories during the show.
Occasionally, people will join a private show in the center atrium. This is okay if the adult supervisor for the scheduled group doesn't mind. If this happens, be sure to focus on the patrons who scheduled the show by asking them questions and calling on them for volunteers, etc.
Be confident but careful when handling the animals. Patrons may be reluctant to pet an animal when the handler seems uncertain.
Outreach shows are the same as regular live animal shows, only we take the show to the school, pack meeting, birthday party, or other location. Patrons who want to schedule an outreach must give us at least 2 weeks advance notice. This allows the education staff to discuss coverage during our weekly staff meetings. We often have to switch shifts around in order to accommodate these outreach requests. When going on an outreach, please consider the following. 1. Time. You will need to plan enough time before your outreach to get the animals ready and loaded into the car. You will also want to give yourself a little extra time to drive to the location in case you have difficulty locating the school, home, etc. It has happened before. You also need some time to unload and get things ready at the outreach location. 2. Car keys. Pick up the car keys from the student secretaries in the main office. When an outreach is scheduled, the secretaries are instructed to schedule the car at the same time. If your show is after 5 p.m., or if you need to leave early in the morning before 9 a.m., you should get the car keys ahead of time. Remember, the office closes at 5 p.m. 3. GPS. Before you leave on an outreach, ask Katie for the GPS device. The GPS has a feature that already lists the public schools as a destination. Always be sure that you enter the information into the GPS before you start driving. If you need to adjust the settings, stop and pull over. The GPS is supposed to help you be a safe driver. We don't want the operation of the device to become a hazard in and of itself. 4. Receipt book. Frequently, schools will request a receipt. Always take a feedback form and the receipt book with you. The student in charge of scheduling will also print out the information about the outreach, including how much to charge. You can write the school a receipt when you receive payment from them at the outreach. You will also need to indicate on the outreach list if the group paid for their outreach or not. Payment is due at the time of the show, but if for some reason the group does not pay, we need to know so that a bill can be sent. Upon returning to campus, if the gas gauge is below a quarter of a tank, please fill it up at the university gas station before returning to the museum. On the car keychain, there is a special key that allows you to gas up at the university gas station. Occasionally, we get requests for exhibit tours. These are scheduled much like a live animal show. However, if you are not busy and a patron requests a tour, you can give them a tour on the spot. Our exhibits tour is made up of many small stories or conversations. These stories were written by student educators and reviewed and approved by faculty members. You can combine any number of stories in the different parts of the museum to complete a tour of varying lengths. To be considered a tour, at least 5 stories need to be shared with the same group or individual. It is your responsibility to learn these stories, so that when there is no live animal show in the museum, you can refer to these stories as you interact with patrons. In the education office, we have a binder with each of the stories. Take time to study these stories during your shift. Tour stories like the show scripts can be accessed on Blackboard. Visitors also have the option of listening to our exhibits tour on their own with the aid of their personal cell phone or MP3 player. Small signs are placed around the museum next to the exhibits that have audio content associated with them. You can suggest this option to visitors and help them get started.